Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. If you've been listening to the last few podcasts, you'll know that I've been interviewing various folk that represent us at the annual conference level. I had a meeting there recently in the afternoon, and so I thought I'd spend the morning just seeing who I could get behind the microphone. Today, you're going to hear a conversation I had with Laura McClean. She is our annual conference Associate Director of Ministry to Youth and Young Adults. I'm pretty sure that's the right title. She'll clarify in a moment if I'm incorrect. But I know Laura as someone that my boys talk about. My son David was with the Conference Council on Youth-Ministries, and my son Jacob as well, and they would come back talking about things that Laura had said or Laura had told them they needed to do or that Laura needed them to do. And so I've known her pretty much through my boys and maybe an occasional email or conversation on the phone. So it was nice for me to be able to sit down and just have a conversation with her and find out exactly what it is that she believes about youth and youth ministry and ministry with young adults and resurrection and all the various kinds of things that go along with that kind of outlook, and also a chance for us to hear some of the passion that she has for the ministry that she does. So I hope you will enjoy this conversation with Laura McClean. Well, I'm speaking now with Laura McClean. What's your title? What's your position here with our annual conference?
My official title is Associate Director of Connectional Ministries for Youth and Young Adults, which is a lot of words to say that I get to work with youth and young adult ministries in our conference.
One of the things through the years, what age brackets are we talking about when we say youth and young adults?
Youth is typically 12 to 18 or until they graduate from high school. And then 18 to 35 is what Holston talks about young adults. The discipline technically says 18 to 30, but we've kind of given that a few more years on the back end.
So that would be 35, that would be 1982-ish, 1981-ish?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the millennial generation.
Right.
Are you into generational theory? Do you really believe in that kind of differences?
I think there is certainly something to it. We definitely see that there are differences in the generations, and we see how, especially technology, has changed the way generations interact and the way that personalities are. I don't think that all millennials are lazy or, can't hold down a job or they're all going to live with their parents and that kind of thing. So, I think we often paint generations with a broad stroke when we don't take time to actually get to know people within those generations.
From some of the things I've read about millennials, they seem to be, broad stroke speaking, more interested in doing things than talking about things.
Absolutely.
And somehow in the local church, I see a disconnect there because as a local church pastor, we like to talk things to death and rarely get around to doing it. So, what are some of the things that your ministry does to get them involved doing things?
That's a great question. And that is something that I do see kind of across the board. That, we hear all the time that young people are leaving our churches. And a lot of times that is because they don't want to just sit around and talk. Or if they do want to talk about things, they want to ask hard questions that a lot of times the church doesn't want to talk about. But as far as doing things, especially with our young adults, I think about Divine Rhythm, which is our young adult weekend retreat that was created as kind of a response to Resurrection, that all these folks grew up going to Resurrection and kind of said, well, what's next? But always as a part of Divine Rhythm that's been a really important part have been service opportunities. So we've had Stop Hunger Now meal packaging. We've had a blood drive. The last 2 years, we've had the opportunity to get out in the Sevier County area and work on homes and do some repairs and that kind of thing. And I think we see in our churches across Holston a lot of success with young adults having the opportunity to get out and serve. Even like one-day mission things in our local community. It doesn't have to be an international trip or something like that, but they want to know that they're putting their faith into practice and that it makes a difference in the real world.
Now, each summer, is there like a conference mission trip for the high school age? Because my son went on one a couple of years back.
Yes, yeah. We do that every summer, and our Conference Council on Youth-Ministries, CCYM, chooses kind of our focus every year. And so last year we worked in Cincinnati, kind of in a more inner city environment, which was a cool thing for a lot of our kids. They've never really kind of experienced that kind of environment. This summer we have talked possibly about West Virginia doing some flood relief, but after Hurricane Matthew, I'm not sure if they might kind of change their focus there. We've gone a little bit of everywhere. We've been in Louisiana, which is crazy to think that this far out from Katrina, there's still work to be done, but there is. We've been to Grundy, Virginia, and Sneedville. We've worked with Jubilee projects, so we try to give a varied options for folks so that, some people can afford to go a little further away or have the time to go further away. And some people, want to stay close. And I also think it's important for our young people to know that there are needs right here, that you don't have to travel to help somebody.
You mentioned the CCYM, the Conference Council on Youth Ministries. It sounds like they are not a self-funding, a self-directed organization. Give us an idea of what that group does.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite parts of what I get to do. CCYM is elected. There are two youth, one adults from each district, and those are elected by the districts, so they're chosen however that district sees it fit. And then we also have alternates who are a part from each district, and some at-large members as well. We have 12 at-large spaces available to help increase diversity and bring different voices to the table that may not get there other ways. So that group then works on youth and mission. They work on assembly. They do things for resurrection, for discovery, which is our event for youth who feel called to ministry. And so they also have an online devotional presence now on our Facebook page, and it's really cool to see them take these leadership roles. And it's really, I love seeing youth who start out, maybe some start in middle school as a part of CCYM, but anytime, and then to watch how their leadership grows over the years because they have those opportunities to be in leadership. Our meetings are open. Anybody could attend, and everybody has a voice at the table. We take official votes, of course, and only the elected members have votes, but we invite anybody who might be interested, and even if you just want to check it out, to come hang out at one of our meetings and see what it's like.
Well, I've had a couple of boys that have been involved in it for the last few years, and they thoroughly enjoy it. One of the things that this podcast can't capture is us, luckily, other than our voice. I'm sitting across from Laura. I wish you could see the excitement on her face. Because one of the questions I was going to ask her was, what is the passion that drives you into ministry? I'm seeing the passion just listening to her talk. I hope you're hearing that. But I'll ask the question. Is there a passion for you that drives you into this kind of ministry with youth and young adults? Why do you do this?
Well, first of all, I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to do this. I personally felt called to ministry when I was a junior in high school. I grew up at a large church, and I had a youth leader who recognized some things in me before I ever would have recognized that in myself. And she gave me opportunities to have leadership options and that kind of thing. And through that, I further discerned that I was being called to ministry with young people. And so I am really passionate about youth and young adults developing a faith of their own. I think it's wonderful that we have churches and families who nurture and teach children the faith. But I think it's also important that at some point we step out and make that faith our own, because if it's just been what Sunday school teachers or parents have taught us, it doesn't quite mean the same. For me, that opportunity really came in college when I took a religion class and a professor said things that I thought, no, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's right. And so, but it really took me to a place of, well, why do I feel this way? What, in a time of reading scripture on my own and going through and praying and learning that for myself. So I love the opportunity to participate and get to know these youth as they grow up into young adults, and to help put on these events where youth come and young adults come and have the opportunity to maybe think about their faith in a different way for the first time, or to further their thoughts and deepen their faith. And it's really like Assembly, for example, is a summer youth event that we do. And there's usually around 200 folks there between junior and senior high. And for me, that is just a glimpse of the kingdom of God. It is youth from all over the conference. They're city kids, there are country kids, there are football players, there are band people, they're everybody. And they all come together that week. And it is just a beautiful picture of what the kingdom of God looks like. There's not the cool kids and the whoever, it's everybody together, learning about their faith, celebrating their faith, worshiping, playing. And I just think that's awesome. I love having the opportunity to be a part of those things.
Wow. I actually did a assembly at Emory and Henry College years ago. I stayed on campus with them, and man, they wore me out.
That's true. That happens as well.
So, do they still do it up at Emory and Henry?
We switch between Emory and Henry and Tennessee Wesleyan. So we do 2 years at each, so that our youth kind of get the opportunity to see some different campuses. And it's interesting. You can see during those years there is often a spike of Holston kids going to one school or the other wherever Assembly has been, because they've had the opportunity to kind of feel home there.
Okay. Well, the big event in my mind, at least for my kids, is Resurrection. Mm-hmm. What do you want to say about Resurrection?
Well, Resurrection, of course, for anyone that's been, it's awesome. there's it's hard to even describe it. And it's fun when I have the opportunity to get together with other people who work in conference youth and young adult ministry. It's interesting to me that kind of across the U.S. people say, oh, you work with Resurrection. We've heard about that, And I think one of the strengths of Resurrection is that youth do come with their youth groups, that we don't just allow people to sign up on their own, but they have this experience, which for a lot of people is a mountaintop experience. And they have that with their community from home. So when they leave that place, they're not just going back by themselves. They're going back with a community that helps support them, and they can support each other. And then I always think I love getting the messages and the emails and things from groups once they go back home and they say, this is the way things have changed at home, or after Resurrection, we were inspired to adopt a local assisted living, home, and we're reaching out to them, or all kinds of different things. And so I love to see that, because I know that real ministry absolutely happens on the local church level. And without the local church and the local community and those leaders in the local churches, youth would not continue to develop in their faith. But I also think it's vitally important to have those opportunities to kind of step away and do something out of the norm to get them thinking and exploring their faith in different ways. And I think Resurrection does that. I also think the excitement of being with 12,000 other people who are praising and worshiping and listening and learning, that really makes a big difference too.
It's always interesting for me. That's I'm not a crowd kind of person, and I really don't like my music quite that loud that it feels like my bones are coming apart at the joints as the bass shakes. But the kids enjoy it, and I guess last year was the first time I'd been in many ages. I was with probably one of the very first resurrection groups back in the late 80s. I remember going to Johnston Woods, and there was maybe like 100 of us there, and most of it was my youth group that year. And it's progressed a little bit, because back then we sat around the campfire and they had some kind of game where you had to put your hand in a bag and pull out and eat whatever you pulled out. It's come a long way since 100 of us around the campfire to 12,000 of us.
Absolutely.
In a convention center in Pigeon Forge. But yet it's doing the same kind of thing. It's forming those bonds, forming those relationships, and helping kids to get to know Jesus Christ. So I'm glad there is someone that has a little bit of enthusiasm and is willing to step forward and lead us in that direction.
That's right.
So... what else about your role do you want to share with us? Just feel free. I'm sort of put the ball in your court now.
Absolutely.
What's on your mind?
Well, something that I love to do is to come out to local churches and talk through whatever may be going on in your local church. If you're having some challenges or want some ideas or want to talk through something related to youth or young adults, I'm happy to do that. I think maybe as the conference, sometimes we do a poor job of advertising that's part of what we do. And so people don't know to ask, and we don't know where to go if people don't ask. So I would encourage anybody that is listening and would like that to let us know. And that's not just true for me, that's true for any conference staff person. So that's, and no cost to the church, anything like that. So would love to help in any way.
See, I grew up in as a pastor of the church. I started serving back in 1983. The 80s and the 90s were what I would say very program driven. If you've got a problem, we've got a program for it at the annual conference. Maybe into the 2000s even.
Right.
I don't see a program as the solution to the local church's problem now.
Right.
So when you say you'll come and talk with the church, you're not going to come in and say, here, I've got box A or box B, which do you want?
Right.
You're going to say, what are y'all doing? Where are you at? What is it you're trying to achieve? And you'll give ideas to get there rather than say, no, do it this way. Is that right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times when like in a local church, it's easy to say, we're not making any progress. We're not, you can't maybe see what all you're doing. But when an outsider comes in and takes a look, it's helpful to point out things that are going great and that are huge successes and should be celebrated. And then things where we could work on, and so I think that's helpful sometimes to have an outsider's view on things. And I by no means say I have all the answers. I know I'm much smarter than that. So, but I do have resources to connect people with and that kind of thing too. So, yeah.
Well, what else about your ministry here with our annual conference do you want folks to know about?
Well, another thing that I do think is so important is Discovery, which is our event for youth who feel called to ministry. The biggest way that we connect with those youth is through Resurrection. There's a time where youth can come forward and express that they feel called to ministry. They fill out an information card and we contact them that way. But sometimes that can be a little uncomfortable for a youth. And I certainly understand that not everybody goes forward. And even if they do go forward, they might not want to fill out their information because they're not sure what's going on. And so I would encourage people from local churches, if you see someone who maybe has gifts and graces that you think might be called into any kind of ministry, we talk about lay ministry as well as ordained ministry at Discovery, because it's really kind of a first step in that exploration, that you would talk to them and help encourage them in their possible, search and discernment there. But then also if the youth is comfortable, if you would share their information with us so that we could help get in touch and share resources and things and invite them to Discovery. like I said, for me, having those opportunities to be in leadership while I was still a youth was huge. And so I think it's important for us to remember that youth and young adults aren't just the leaders of tomorrow, but they can do things today. Look at that. Your own son has directed VBS for several years now, which is a perfect example of the ways that there are wonderful opportunities if we'll just step aside and let them lead. So, and that does wonders for their faith development too, to have those chances.
Well, Laura, I want to thank you for sharing some time with me and hopefully some listeners out there. The podcast is still in its infancy stages, so maybe yours will be the one that lights me into the realms of great podcasting.
I don't know that I would count on me for that.
But again, thank you so much for your ministry to the annual conference, and I'll be seeing you at Resurrection.
All right, thank you.
This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.